Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There are times when Allah sends you a direct message, not in a dream, not in a voice, but in a tug of your heart, in a heavy silence, in a truth you try to ignore. And that message is this: don't do it. Don't go any further. You're about to trigger my wrath. You who have been chosen, you who have been awakened to a greater consciousness, know one thing: the chosen are not spared. On the contrary, they are judged with greater rigor. Because they know, because they have seen, because they have heard the reminders, and yet, sometimes, they slip, slowly, telling themselves it's nothing, it's temporary, it's justifiable. But Allah forgets nothing. And when He begins to turn away from a heart, it is not always with visible punishment. Sometimes it is with silence. Sometimes it is with a peace that disappears without explanation. And you feel something inside you extinguish. This reminder is a warning, a final appeal perhaps, for what you are about to do or what you continue to do in secret attracts the wrath of the Almighty. And Allah has sworn that His punishment is painful. You do not want to be the person who was warned and continued anyway. There are sins we commit with trembling, and others we repeat with a smile. Some cause us immediate shame, and others become so familiar that we accept them as habits. But what you should know today is that there are actions that seem light to us, but in the eyes of Allah they weigh heavily. Very heavily. If you are among those whom Allah has chosen to bear His light, then you can no longer live in the illusion that certain behaviors are without consequence. The chosen ones do not have the luxury of negligence. Among these sins are those born in secret, words unspoken but thought, looks that no one watches, corrupt intentions that you justify. There is this heart that begins to tolerate what it condemned yesterday. You don't steal, you don't kill, you don't humiliate anyone, but you let the poison in gently. A forbidden relationship, a financial compromise, a prayer delayed without pain, a sin that follows you and that you are no longer afraid to look at. And this is where forgetting begins. Forgetting gravity, forgetting the judge, forgetting the wrath of Allah. You say to yourself, I'll make up for it later. I know Allah. He is merciful. But this phrase is easy. If it comes from faith, can also come from shaitan. For shaitana doesn't always push you to disobey abruptly. No. He teaches you to disobey slowly, with pious excuses, elegant justifications, and reassuring speeches in your head, until you settle into sin comfortably, until your heart no longer trembles, until the wrath of Allah no longer frightens you, and meanwhile, the doors of repentance are slowly closing. Not because Allah refuses to forgive you, but because your heart is beginning to lose the desire to return. That's the danger. You no longer wake up at Fajr with fear. You no longer hear the reminders as before. You do good deeds, but your intention is confused. You know something is wrong, but you let it happen. You watch your own shipwreck passively. It's not that you don't know, it's that you've stopped taking it seriously. And that's where you become a chosen one in danger. Allah's anger is not always visible in your life. It does not always strike like a flash. It settles in the gradual withdrawal of His presence. You pray, but you are no longer touched. You read the Quran, but it no longer penetrates. You make supplications, but your heart is elsewhere. You smile in front of people, but your soul is heavy. And all this you attribute to stress, fatigue, life, when in truth, it is a silent cry. Your soul is dying in a scene that you refuse to abandon. The elect are tested more severely than others because they carry more truth within them. But this truth, if betrayed, becomes a terrible burden. A misused light can burn. A divine gift, disrespected, can turn against you. This is why Allah, in His absolute justice, warns. He sends signs. He awakens your heart with reminders like this. And if despite everything you continue, then it is no longer just a sin, it is an affront, a betrayal, a negligence towards the one who has honored you by guiding you. Don't minimize. Don't put things into perspective. If Allah is angry with the chosen one, it is because He knows, but chooses to ignore. He is aware, but continues anyway. He sees the red line and crosses it voluntarily. Perhaps what you do today seems small to you, but in Allah's records, it may be a huge debt. And until you return, until you break the cycle, until you uproot this sin, you are drifting away from the one who can forgive you everything, but who does not tolerate persistent betrayal. This reminder is a door. Either you enter or you ignore it. But know that this door will not remain open forever. Sometimes the worst punishment a heart can experience isn't pain. It isn't trial. It isn't loss. It's the silent abandonment of Allah. That moment when He stops correcting you. That moment when, despite your sin, nothing happens to you. You go on with your life. You move forward. You even laugh. But you feel nothing anymore. No more embarrassment. No more shame. No more fear. Just cold indifference disguised as peace. And that's when the danger becomes immense. The chosen ones, when they turn away from the reminder, do not always sink suddenly. They slide gently, like a leaf carried by the wind. First, it is a delay in prayer. Then a negligence in dhikr. Then one word too many. A toxic company accepted. And slowly, their hearts begin to change. What they once fled becomes bearable. What they condemned becomes banal. What they feared becomes desirable, until they no longer recognize the voice of their fitrah. And the scary thing is, during this fall, everything seems normal. No alarm sounds, there's no lightning, no dramatic loss, just a gentle, quiet, silent drifting away. And Allah watches, and He holds back His anger, because sometimes He decides not to intervene. He decides to let you go, to leave you to your own devices, not out of forgetfulness, but out of justice, because you saw the light and rejected it, because you heard the reminder and ignored it, because you knew and chose to continue anyway. This kind of silence from Allah is not forgetfulness. It is a hidden anger, a heavenly indignation covered with patience. And when Allah remains silent while you sink, it is because He is testing you on a very high level. He is waiting for you to understand for yourself. He is waiting for your heart to awaken. But if it does not awaken, if it clings to sin as a security, then the punishment will be heavier than for one who has never known. The Prophet said, when Allah intends good for His servant, He hastens for him the punishment in this world. So imagine what the total absence of punishment means. Perhaps this apparent comfort is proof that your case has been put aside, that your soul is slowly closing while you smile, convinced that all is well. And yet, all around you, the signs are there. You hear the reminders less. Your heart no longer trembles when reciting the Quran. You no longer cry while praying. You feel that something has shifted inside you, but you can't define what it is. You want to return, but you no longer have the same desire as before. You want to love Allah as before, but there is a distance that you don't understand. This distance, You built it. And if you don't tear it down soon, it will become a wall. A wall between you and Allah's help. A wall between you and the light. And the bigger this wall grows, the more insensitive you will become. You will begin to justify your condition, to say that you are on a spiritual hiatus, to minimize the importance of what you are experiencing, until even the word wrath of Allah seems too strong, too harsh, almost unreal. But Allah is real, His anger is real, and your return is still possible. Just because He is silent does not mean He approves. Just because He waits does not mean He tolerates. Allah is just. And His justice, sometimes, is to leave you to your own choice, to let you drift away until the day you can no longer find your way back. You don't want to get there. You don't want to be that heart that has grown accustomed to disobedience, that has adapted to the absence of Allah, that has replaced the divine presence with worldly, futile, and toxic things. If you hear these words today, if your heart feels anything, even a slight discomfort, know that you are still alive, that Allah has not closed the doors to you, that He still sends you reminders, and that as long as you feel a pang in your soul, there is still hope. But this pinch, don't ignore it. Don't let it pass, because next time it might not come. And if you continue, despite everything, then it's not Allah's anger that you're provoking. It's His withdrawal. And when Allah withdraws, who will be left for you? There are signs, not visible flashes, but silent clues that Allah is beginning to turn away from a servant. These signs don't show on your face. They don't disrupt your daily life at first glance. But if you have a living heart, you will recognize them. And if you choose to ignore them, you expose yourself to an inner emptiness that nothing and no one can fill. For when the love of Allah withdraws, the whole world becomes dull. The first of these signs is that you no longer experience sweetness in worship. You still perform prayer, but without trembling. You make dhikr, but your heart remains dry. You read the Quran, but each verse slides off your mind like water on a stone. It is not that you have stopped doing deeds, it is that they have ceased to nourish you. You do them, mechanically. You know that you must do them, but the connection has been erased. Then there is this heaviness in doing good. What was easy becomes painful. What brought you peace becomes a source of discomfort. You postpone moments of solitude with Allah. You deliberately delay prayer without any justification. You say to yourself, I'll do it later. And this later becomes your refuge from the voice of your conscience. But every delay is a crack in your connection with the divine. Then comes the feeling of detachment from the reminders. Where you used to shudder at the sound of a verse or a hadith, you now feel weariness. You hear the same words, but they no longer reach your heart. You click on an Islamic video, but you leave it after a minute. You find the reminders too long, too hard, too demanding. In reality, it's not the reminder that's too hard. It's your heart that has become too distant. Another subtle sign is the loss of inner modesty. That moment when you do something forbidden without even justifying yourself. You no longer feel that slight unease after a sin. You joke about things that Allah hates. You laugh at actions that anger Him. You look at what He has commanded you to avoid and you say, it doesn't matter, I'm human. Of course you are human. But is the chosen one, the beloved of Allah, satisfied with this excuse? There is also the gradual detachment from remorse. You know you must make Tawbah. You know you must get up. But you say, not now. I'm not ready. And that phrase becomes your bed. You lie down on it. You fall asleep on it. Until the need to return disappears completely. That's when, at that precise moment, you must be afraid. For the pain of sin is a mercy. When it disappears, perhaps your heart is beginning to die. And then there's this strange fatigue, not a physical fatigue, but a spiritual weariness. You're tired of wanting to please Allah. You find piety too burdensome. You look at people of faith as if they live in a world that's too demanding. You tell yourself you just want to live your life. But your life, without Allah, becomes a wandering. You weren't born to go astray. You weren't chosen to run away. And finally, there is that silence in your soul, that emptiness, that feeling that something is missing even when everything seems fine on the outside. You may have blessings, good health, plans, people who love you, but inside you, there is a hole, a void that no human being can fill, because it is shaped for only one presence, that of Allah. This emptiness is a cry. It says to you, come back. It doesn't cry out with words. It cries out with a constant unease, with an absent peace, with a loneliness among people. And the more you ignore it, the more it turns into darkness, until the day even that cry dies. And then you can face abandonment, the real kind, the kind that no return can ever make up for if Allah has decreed it. You are not there yet. You still hear, you still feel. But do not wait for the signs to become walls. Do not wait for your heart to become deaf. Do not wait for Allah to take everything away from you so that you may understand. You are still within the deadline, but this deadline is not eternal. Remember this: Allah never turns away without warning. And if He warns you today, it is because He still loves you. It is because He still wants you. But if you continue, despite all the signs, then it will no longer be a test. It will be justice. You are not here by chance. If these words reach you, it is because Allah is speaking to you through them. This is not a simple video. This is not just another reminder. This may be one of the last warnings before things turn upside down. There are moments when Allah places a mirror before you, not to condemn you, but to wake you up. Look at yourself. See where you are. Feel what you have become. Compare that to the person you were when your heart wept easily, when your soul trembled before the verses, when you waited for prayer with love. What broke? When did you stray from the light? There are no excuses when you know. And you know, that is the difference between you and others. Allah has shown you truths that many will never see. You have tasted divine closeness. You have known what it felt like to pray with an awakened heart, to fast with pure intention, to cry sincerely in the secrecy of the night. But today, all of this seems distant to you, like a hazy memory. And this distance you feel, you have let it settle in. You ignored the first warning signs. You put the first lapses into perspective. You lied to yourself. But here's the naked truth. You can't go on like this. Not you. Not the chosen one. Not the one Allah chose, loved, protected, guided. You can't pretend you don't know. You can't look at your sin and say, it's not so bad. Because every act, every choice, every compromise takes you further away from the one you secretly love. Even if you don't say it, even if you don't show it, you know deep down that your life loses its flavor when Allah walks away. And Allah is angry. Not because He wants to punish you, not because He takes pleasure in anger, but because you know better. Because you have seen, heard, felt, and yet you choose what displeases Him. This anger is not that of a tyrant. It is that of a master who has given everything and who sees his servant squander his gifts. It is not an impulsive anger. It is a sacred anger, born of a silent, repeated, conscious betrayal. But listen to me carefully. It is not too late. You can still please Allah. You can still make your sin a ladder to Him. You can still transform His anger into mercy. But it will not be done with words. It is not enough to say, "I'm sorry." You must cry for real. You must get up in the night. You must break the chains one by one. You must close the doors you have opened to sin. You must flee from what is keeping you away. You must come back, as one comes home after being lost for too long. And don't say it's difficult. You've done harder things before. You've resisted much stronger temptations. You've held on when everything wanted to knock you down. The difference is that today you're tired. But even in tiredness, Allah looks at the intention. Sometimes all it takes is a sincere step for Him to shower you with His mercy. All it takes is a "Ya Rabbi" from the heart for Him to change your entire trajectory. But you still have to want it. Don't get used to living without inner thrill. Don't get used to a faith without taste. Don't accept being a religious body without a living soul. You can deceive others, but not Allah, and especially not yourself. If you feel something is off, relight it. If you know you've lost your way, straighten up. If you feel a void, it's one you're still capable of filling. Allah doesn't demand perfection. He demands a true heart, a heart that struggles, that regrets, that returns, that falls and gets back up, but that never gives up. And you still have that heart. It's hidden beneath layers of distractions, sins, and escapes. But it's there. It's waiting for you to deliver it. And every second that passes without you doing so is a second that fuels Allah's anger. Come back. Even if you crawl, even if you cry, even if you are burdened, come back. For the greatest harm you can do to yourself is not to sin, but to remain far from Allah after having sinned. You were not chosen to be weak. You were not singled out to bend in the face of hardship. You were not set apart by Allah to blend in with what everyone else is doing. There is a strength within you that you have forgotten. A light that you have extinguished out of fatigue, distraction, or fear. But that light is not dead. It is still there, covered in dust, hidden beneath the layers of compromise you have made. But it is ready to shine again if you dare to return fully to Allah. Remember a moment, however brief, when you felt close to your Lord. A moment when your heart trembled, when you raised your hands and wept without understanding why, when you felt that nothing mattered more than Him. That moment, however distant, is proof that you are capable of an intense connection with Allah. And if it existed once, it can exist again. And even better. For Allah never diminishes His favors when one sincerely returns to Him. You may live in a world where everything encourages disobedience. You are surrounded by images, speeches, and examples that make sin seem banal, harmless, even attractive. But never forget, what the majority follows is not always what the truth indicates. The chosen are few, not because they are perfect, but because they choose obedience even when it costs. Because they say no when everyone else says yes. Because they cry when others laugh at the haram. Because they flee from what burns the soul even if it gives pleasure to the body. And you have been chosen. Not because you are better, but because your heart was receptive to a reminder. Because Allah wanted to awaken you. Because He has included you among those He wishes to purify. It is an honor, but also a responsibility. One does not trifle with Allah's gaze. One does not reject His outstretched hand of forgiveness. One does not despise the love He shows you through this reminder. There are actions you are about to perform which you are still considering today. And this message stands as a wall between you and this error. You have the opportunity to back out now. You can cancel, delete, distance yourself, extinguish. It is not too late. But if you move forward despite the warning, you will not be able to say that you did not know. And the wrath of Allah, in this case, will not be linked to the magnitude of the sin, but to the disregard of the reminder. Do you want to live happily? Do you want things to unblock in your life? Do you want to see doors open, blessings shower down, peace fill your chest? Then obey. Even when it costs you, even when it goes against your wishes, even if you're the only one around you making this choice. Sincere obedience opens invisible paths, unblocks dead-end situations, heals old pain, and restores clarity to the soul. But be careful. This isn't a theatrical, empty, heartless obedience. It isn't praying to check a box. It isn't wearing a religious habit while maintaining toxic habits. It's a complete return, a firm decision, an act of courage where you say, enough. I've given enough of myself to the world. I've sacrificed too much peace for moments of pleasure. I've put off my appointment with Allah too long. Today, I'm coming back. And the most incredible thing is that when you take that sincere step, Allah responds. Immediately. Maybe not in the way you expected, but always better. Maybe by distancing you from people who were draining you. Maybe by removing what you thought was a blessing, but was poison. Maybe by putting new faces, new opportunities, new truths in your path. But you must begin. Now. What you are about to do not do. What you are hiding from others, stop. What you have been putting off for months, do it. You already know what you must do. And if you are waiting for a sign, here it is. You are reading it. You are feeling it in your chest. You are trembling because you know it is not a coincidence. Allah speaks. And He speaks to you. Come back. You've cried for less. You've suffered for people who never understood you. You've given yourself to relationships that left you empty. You've clung to habits that damaged you. And despite all that, Allah has never closed His door on you. Even now, when you doubt, when you struggle within, He calls you. He's waiting for you. And He looks at you with immense love, ready to cleanse you of everything if only you truly want to change. You don't need to be perfect to come back. You only need to be true. Allah loves sinners who come back more than the pretentious who delude themselves. He loves the effort, the trembling step, the fast-beating heart, the timidly raised hand. He loves your return, even if it's clumsy. It's not the beauty of the gesture that matters, it's its sincerity. So don't put it off anymore. Don't do it, whatever the cost. Even if it means saying no to what you want most. Even if it takes you away from what you thought would be your happiness. For the true wrath of Allah, the one you never want to taste, begins when you continue to walk willfully away from Him after He has warned you. Listen and choose before it's too late.